Good morning. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Please share my channel. Please comment whether you agree with me or not. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So today I wanted to talk about something that is kind of goes along with what I posted yesterday. But this morning I found a video. It's strange how my videos come up, the algorithms come up. I mean, I am convinced that the phone obviously knows what we're interested in and brings us more of the same. But this one was a little bit different. This one wasn't a scientist or anybody talking about quantum theory. It wasn't anybody talking about spirituality or, things like that. This was a CIA agent, a former CIA agent who was talking about perception, but his perspective on perception really fell into line with a lot of the things that I've been listening to and posting along the way here. So I found it very interesting, but I didn't listen to the whole video. It was actually 2 hours long. I only listened to about 20 minutes of it. But from what I gathered, from what I listened to, he was talking about reality. In the CIA, he shared that when people are trained in the CIA, they're trained to not trust what they see. They're trained to not think with their emotions. They're trained to look and see and get a visual on their surroundings, but to not necessarily trust that what they think they're seeing is what they're seeing, which is, I find that very interesting. And I can understand why in the CIA, they would need to do that. They have to be aware of their surroundings in a very objective way. They can't be subjective. They can't think in terms of, what do I think this is? They have to think in terms of, what is this? And so it created a discussion that, this is just so interesting to me, because our perception of reality is unique to each of us based on our experience. And I've said this before, that we see things through the window of our own experience, and that's how we perceive our reality. So you can have 8 billion people in the world, and each and every one of us is going to see a different reality. Now, does that mean that there aren't commonalities in all of our realities? No, because we are all taught that the world is this place. We're taught from the start we're in this particular scenario. And in a second, this is going to be rough. Okay. So we are all taught that the world is a particular way. We're taught that there are people, and we're taught that there are animals here, and we're taught that there are, cars, and we go to school and we get jobs. And these are all things that we learn from our parents and from the rest of the world around us, that this is the reality that we live in, this is the world. We come into this experience, and for the most part, it's pretty similar, for all of us, with all of these things like roads and cities and cars, and we have grass and trees and sky and the sun. These are all things, like, even as children, I don't know if any of you remember as children, were you ever asked in school to draw a picture of your house, draw a picture of your family, draw a picture of the outdoors, or of mountains, or the sky, or the sun? And our pictures were all very similar, because the things we were perceiving, we'd all put a mountain and a tree and a big bright ball of yellow in the sky. As children, we would draw these things because these are the things that we would see with our eyes. So that part of it, the landscape, the general landscape of Earth, is something that is common to pretty much all of us. I don't know too many people who say that they look around, although colorblind people, we see green grass, or most people see green grass and blue sky, but colorblind people see brown grass and maybe, a different color sky. I don't know what the opposite of blue is. I think it's yellow. I'm not sure. But colorblind people see colors differently than other people do. So just because we have streets and cities and roads and grass doesn't mean that everybody's vision paints the same exact picture of these things. So we do have variations of this reality. And that's just based on our senses. Some people who don't hear aren't able to hear the birds of the world and people's voices the same way. So our senses can create variations, but for the most part, the landscape in this whole scenario of Earth is the same for most of us. And when you have people's perceptions, people's experience creating their perception of reality, a lot of that has to do with, you take the basic landscape, and then from there, how do people create different realities from there? So take the same backdrop, like you're watching a play on the stage, and they set the stage, and that's the world, that's our backdrop. And each person who's watching the play is watching characters, they're watching people play a role, and everybody agrees that there are actors on the stage. But the play goes on, and the storyline and the plot and everything, I saw Phantom of the Opera one time with some friends, and as the story goes on and as the play continues, not every single person who is watching that play is going to necessarily gather the same meaning from the plot. Every person in that audience, there might be some people who sit there crying with joy because they think that it's such a beautiful story. Take, for instance, Romeo and Juliet. Some people might think, what a beautiful love story. And some people might look at that play and gather, gosh, how tragic. That's awful. Some people might get warm feelings towards it, and some people might get very feelings of anxiety, and some people might get feelings of joy and love. Different productions, and it's the same way with any of the arts. It's the same way with music. I can listen to the same song that you're listening to, and I can think, what a beautiful song, and you can think that's just a bunch of noise. We have different perceptions of what we hear, see, taste, touch, and smell. So our senses are processing the same things, but we are all processing those things in our own unique way. So that's why a lot of times when people say things like, how can you not see that that's in the Bible? The Bible clearly says, and the Bible is not wrong. How can you not see that? You're a blasphemer because you don't see that clearly written. And my response to that is, they do see it. They're looking at the same words that you're looking at, and those words don't change. Those words are the backdrop. The words don't change, but our perception of them does. Our perception of the reality that's before us can, and most often is, different from other people's perceptions based on our inner experience. So when I say based on our experience, I've mentioned this in videos before, but I won't ask you to go all the way back and search all my videos for this. I'll just mention it again. Our upbringing, what we were taught as children, what was said to us as children, what was planted in our minds, what we were told about ourselves, what we were told about the world, what we learned about the world, what we experienced in our early childhood formative years. They call ages 1 through 7 the formative years because those are the years that we're gathering all this information. And in those years that we're just sponges. They say children are like sponges. Children start out with an objective view, and then they become sponges and they take in all this data. They take in all this information. And that information goes down into our processor, and it's there as our core. And that information becomes the foundation of how we see things from that point on. So when I say the window of our experience, all that information gathering from ages 1 to 7 creates the foundation, the bottom line, the part of us that when we see things around us as adults, we go down into our subconscious, most of the time unknowingly, and we gather the data that we have received. And it's through that data that we gathered that we see what we're seeing now. That data comes into play. That information creates bias toward our own perception. That's why I can listen to one song and say it's beautiful, and you can listen to the same song and say it's garbage. Because we unknowingly, most of the time we don't even know why, because it's in our subconscious, this information. It's stored deep down in our subconscious where we're not continuously aware of it. We're not aware of every single thought that's in our subconscious at all times. Now we can become very introspective, and we can become more aware of what we have down in there in our subconscious. We do that by what's a lot of people call shadow work. And that's what that is. It's getting down in there and finding out, what do I believe and why do I believe it? Where did that come from? Why do I see things this way? Shadow work is really just a questioning of self. Some people might say shadow work is, and this is another perception, some people might say shadow work is very beneficial, and other people might say it's evil and it's from the devil. Those are two perceptions of the same reality that we all live in. We live in a life that has a particular foundation, and then we all get to explore within the bounds of that foundation. And we all have different opinions. So our perceptions are our own personal biases. So that's why I don't tell anybody that their perception is wrong, because I don't think anybody's perception is wrong. Somebody doesn't have to look at things the way I look at them to be right. Everybody in my life, in my book, everyone is allowed to have their own view of what they see around them. I might see something in front of me and say to the person beside me, do you see that? Like it happens with clouds. I might say, look in the sky, there's a duck. You see the duck? No, I don't see the duck. What do you see? I see a cloud. I don't see a duck. The cloud doesn't even look like a duck. It actually looks a little bit more like a dog maybe, but not a duck. So that's just a very simplistic example of how we can be looking at the same thing and see something different. I'm not going to argue till the cows come home with that person that the cloud is definitely a duck. Why would I do that? The cloud is a duck to me. It's a dog to them. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a duck, it's a dog, it's a cloud, who cares? It's what we see that it is. And none of us are wrong. Just because we see something differently doesn't mean that somebody's wrong. And again, I'm not trying to tell you that if you think everybody is wrong because they don't perceive things the way you do, I'm not even going to tell you that you're wrong. That's how you see it. Do you understand where this is going? If you truly believe that everybody is wrong but you, that's what you believe, and you're entitled to believe that. Believe it. That's your thing. I'm not going to criticize you for thinking that way. I will maybe say something if you start hurting people over it. I mean, and I'm not saying you. I'm not telling you that you are hurting people, but if someone else starts to hurt people over those arguments, then there's a problem there, because nobody should be causing harm to another human being for any reason. That's why Jesus said we're all supposed to love one another. Love one another even with your differences. Love one another. Love the good people, the bad people, the right people, the wrong people. Love all people. Because we are all here in this experience, and we're all perceiving what we perceive, and we're all exploring in our own way. And we should give each other the grace to be able to explore in our own way, to gather information and to, live this life. It's kind of like an adventure. We should all be free. It's like if you drop a busload of kids off in an amusement park, they're all not going to go to the same roller coaster. They're going to scatter. Some are going to go to the tippy cups, and some are going to go to the roller coaster. Some are going to want to ride the merry-go-round or whatever else it is that's in that park. Some are going to go straight for the ice cream shop. None of them are wrong. This world is like a playground, and we were like a bunch of children that were dumped off on a bus, and none of us are wrong for what we want to explore and what we want to see and how we perceive things. When you gather all those children after their field trip and they come back from the amusement park and they all sit down and they write out a story of, and the teacher says, I want you to write, what was that? What was the amusement park? What was it? And one child writes, oh, it was way up high and then way down low, and it was very fast. And another child writes, oh, it was delicious and it tasted, like sugar. And another child writes, it spun around and around and around. If each of those children compares their notes on the amusement park, none of them are wrong. They just went to different rides on the amusement park. They had different perceptions of the same park. And that's the way we human beings are in this world life experience. We're just having different experiences in the same life. So anyway, that's what I had to share today. Again, all my deep thinking, this is what it comes to, but this is what I do. And this is why I have this channel. But if you have anything to offer, if you have anything to share, if you have anything to add, or if you want to, dispute something, feel free. You are all free to share whatever it is that you have on your mind. And like I always say, I don't think I'm always right. I don't think anybody else is wrong. I just like to hear from people. So anyway, I'm going to get into the office now. That's all I've got. Hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next time.